What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Final Fantasy 16 review scores. Look, obviously the game comes out tonight, comes out tomorrow. People will be playing it very, very soon, but there were a lot of reviews that dropped today. I feel like more than normal, 97 registered reviews right now on Metacritic, and it's got an 88 average, extremely, extremely high. Now, like I always say, make your own decisions. Don't go just based off the numbers, and what we're going to do and what I want to do in this video is to talk more about what was said, not necessarily the ratings. In fact, the first thing that kind of jumps out is when you look at the very first 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100 by Game Rant, they literally start by saying the game is by no means perfect, right? So that's why generally scores can be a little misleading. It's more about what they're saying in their reviews. So I want to go over the things that were kind of reoccurring, right? The things that a lot of these sites were saying. And there does seem to be consensus that the gameplay is awesome. Now, it does depend, I guess, on where you land of, is it allowed to be in a Final Fantasy game, right? That's actually one of the main things. You'll see some sites that just say, the gameplay is fantastic. Actually, pretty much everyone, including even the ones that gave this game a 6 or a 7, they praised the combat. The combat was the reason why it got the score that it got, at least for most of them. And then it just depends on, well, is this not a Final Fantasy game? I did see some sites say, I think they forgot to put the Final Fantasy in their Final Fantasy game. So that does seem to be a thing. Now, look, from my perspective, playing the demo, I don't really care. I love the combat. Some of these sites said it takes a while for the combat to get going. I mean, I guess that's possible. I thought the opening 2 hours was rather good. I mean, if it gets better after those 2 hours, that's fantastic because I actually liked what we first saw of it. So you have the combat. Again, I'd say a universal love, just kind of deciding if it belongs here or not. And then when it comes to the story, you got a little bit more divisiveness. It's not exactly, everybody's agreeing with it. So what it seems like is at least the main story is for the most part really good. I did see some sites talk about like a big drop at the end, or it basically doesn't conclude that well. Like they didn't like the ending of the story. But generally, Clive and the supporting cast and the story itself, when you're in these big, blockbuster moments, it's extremely good. That seems to be the general consensus from all of these sites. The side stuff definitely seems to be more of the hit or miss things. I see a lot of the sites that are giving it, again, like the 8s and the 7s, right? So a little bit lower, talking about there's some really bad fetch quests in this game, and the side quests just in general aren't good enough. They rely more on, the game relies more on the main stuff to carry it rather than the side stuff, right? Again, that's just something to kind of keep in your head. You could agree with it, you could disagree with it, that's totally cool. That's just what they are saying. On top of, again, maybe the ending, and I had seen some rumors leading into this week, like over the weekend, some people were telling me that they had seen stuff where the ending kind of was disappointing, so maybe there's some truth to that. I hope not. I like the Game of Thrones thing that we're doing here, in the demo at least. So if they can keep that going, and I know it's a little melodramatic and all that stuff, I love it. I kind of lean into that stuff for a game like this. So if they can just keep that bar right there, I think they're going to be more than fine. But again, depends on who you're reading for sure. There's a lot of really good stuff being said here, though. I think overall, well, you look at the average, again, 88. There's more 10s than there's maybe more 10s than there are any other score, to be honest with you. But you see a lot of people talking about like this reinvention of Final Fantasy and kind of made for like the modern audience, which normally I hate that. I hate that line. Normally that actually signals death for a franchise. But if you take the modern audience part out of it, I do think this is Final Fantasy evolving with the times, right? And that's literally, Yoshi P has talked about that before too, right? Where like this kind of has to be different. This has to be a different Final Fantasy. This has to kind of be more open to the general fandom, bring in some new blood, bring in some new people that have never played it before. That's kind of what this game needs to do, and that's what he wanted it to do. Also with the combat, like that's a big reason for that as well, right? So I feel like they set out to do what they wanted. Again, ultimately, we will be the ones to decide tonight, tomorrow, as we start to play this thing. There is some performance stuff in terms of it not being able to reach, whether it's the frame rate, whether it's the resolution dropping in certain circumstances. So there is definitely some of that. And the reason I didn't spend too much time talking about it is that was already kind of discovered or found out in the demo, right? There's Digital Foundry and all them. They kind of looked through it and said, yeah, this isn't exactly what they said it was going to be. So hopefully, and we know there are going to be some patches, and hopefully they can get up there. I didn't notice it too much in the demo. I talked about it. It's mainly those like mech fights, like the ginormous fights that are like otherworldly. That's where the frame rate really stuttered for me. There are some people in the reviews talking about the same thing when it comes to the base game, so hopefully that is fixed. You don't want that. You know, that's just not necessary. Let the game kind of sink or swim on its own. You don't need to bring the graphical stuff into it as well. And ultimately, as we've seen with many games this year, you can't avoid that stuff. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed. I'll be having my review, my impressions of this game over the coming days. I cannot wait, and I hope to see you guys there.